kick-started this party. Viswanathan Anand versus Jan nepomniachtchi, and here we go. Round 5. The Online Nations Cup is rolling. Thank you yet again to everybody who's been with us, not just today, but the last few days, and we hope you continue to make it a habit. So we've got a Grunfeld. Now this 5 bishop d2 line. This is something you don't see as often these days at the highest levels, and notice it even gives Jan a little bit of a pause. He doesn't normally do that.
And Jan being a Grunfeld expert, along the likes of Peter Svidler and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, we see that we can take on the bishop on c3. So typically in the Grunfeld,
typically that's the idea, yeah.
Yeah, well, white takes the pawn in a standard Grunfeld, but with these bishop d2 lines, you develop your bishop first so you can take back on c3, and that way you challenge the bishop on g7. That's that beautiful Grunfeld bishop. And if c5, you can play d5, and there goes those trades, and the black king side feels more vulnerable without that beautiful fianchetto bishop.
Well, we saw a game yesterday where Ding Liren defeated Jan nepomniachtchi with the white pieces with a line that took a little more time. The bishop came to h6, eventually made a trade here. So this is, like you said, it's a direct challenge of the traditional Grunfeld pressure. Again, everybody, normally in a structure, when the capture happens and the pawn comes here, the whole idea is black has given white the center for the opportunity to try to undermine it. That's literally the goal. So putting the bishop on c3 says it's not going to be the same way you normally see a Grunfeld, and Jan not going to steer away from the main idea, but I expect your move d5 to be the answer, and indeed Vishy plays it.
Right, and that way, you keep your center closed for the time being, and you point out white has 2 pawns in the center to black's 1, and black's saying, all right, my queenside structure in the long run, that can be an advantage, but always be on the lookout for that thorny d5 pawn, where if you ever play e6, now I have a clear pass pawn and one that I'll use to my advantage.
Yeah, this will be interesting to see, and again, we have to pause right now to notice it because it may not last very long. Jan is down on the clock to Vishy Anand. How often do you say that, right? Jan, not much time, of course, being taken by the top Russian player, but we know how fast he is. Yesterday, he almost reached 28 minutes with the increment. So it tells you that bishop d2 was clearly maybe not the first thing he expected, and now that we're in this live position, he'll have to continue to show that he's ready for this line, even if it wasn't the top of his playbook.
And it's an important psychological point because, of course, Jan nepomniachtchi has seen this bishop b2 line many times, but he's sitting there asking himself for that little pause, why is Anand playing that against me? Like, what does he want from me in this specific game? And that's what causes you that pause, not because you're scared, not because there's any consternation, but you're just like, hey, Vishy's so good. He can play so many different things. He's a diverse repertoire. Why this and why today?
Yeah. I feel like when you say why this, why now, why today, I'm supposed to have an answer. I have no answer. I don't know, but we're going to find out, right? Knight f3 played very quickly. I was just about to say this is the typical tension that happens in these extended d5 Grunfelds, and the risk is, as you said, the risk of e6 is that you're giving the passed pawn, but the risk for white is all these pawn moves, not developing the king side, leaving the king in the center. Normally, you would even think c4 might be an idea to reinforce it, but Vishy has already said, I'm not even going to meet e takes d5 with capturing a bishop to c4. This is going to be a fun one. Could we get a little bit of vintage Vishy prep here? Vintage Vish?
I think we are getting Vish, as his username goes, but it's a great move, bishop c4. That way you get to develop, get closer to castling. You want to castle kingside, and you have, if you can take on d5 with the bishop, you'll have a 4-on-3 majority on the king side and a potentially mobile e-pawn that can thrust to e5 and cause black all sorts of problems.
Wow, I cannot wait to see how Jan responds to this. Vishy, clearly the slightly, not necessarily better prepared player at this point. We don't know totally yet, but as far as the time management, we know that Jan doesn't think unless he needs to. That is a #1 thing you can know about Jan. So he's going to have to come up with something, and we're gonna come back to this one in a minute. There's so many other games going. Again, remind everybody you just saw our on-the-go slide. Whether you're watching on the phone, whether you're on the web, you can go to chess.com. And oh my gosh, I'm being told that Viswanathan Anand is absolutely blowing Jan nepomniachtchi off the board. We have to go back to this. So forget my speech about how you can get better at chess with pawn structures and tactics that occur in the middle game. But this is kind of on cue because normally the tactics you get, you should also be familiar with. If you're getting pawn structures, clearly Nepo was not familiar with this opening. And I want to say I called it, Robert. I said, what did I say? Team India needed to turn it around. They needed to be led by their co-captain, co-board, and he's about to deliver mate in 4.
What in the world? I mean, I'm looking at this and I'm speechless for pretty much the first time ever. Queen h6 is the threat with Queen g7 mate to follow. And
There's
if
no way to
after
stop it.
well, you could play King h8, right? But then the problem is after Queen h6, Rook g8 stopping mate on g7, you can't stop mate on h7 after that. So this is a forced checkmate. And Vishy, I mean, putting in the psychological work of what might Jan Nepomniachtchi not be comfortable with today, and he gets the victory that quickly.
Gosh.
You do not see that kind of miniature against Jan Nepomniachtchi pretty much ever.
Well, I think we're aware of what game of the day a God Mator is going to be doing. Shout out to Antonio, because I don't know that it's going to get any easier to pick your selection today from the FeedHS.com Online Nations Cup. I mean, geez Louise. A lot of people just tuning in are like, we just saw the fastest victory, I think, not only, obviously not just of this event, but we've maybe ever seen between Vishy Anand and Jan Nepomniachtchi, two guys who played a lot. Robert said Bishop D2 played already. It was clear right away. You and I just saw pause, right? It was clear Jan gave pause, like, okay, I wasn't expecting this, but the game continues. And then we left it right here when Bishop to C4 was the response. Jan was thinking, and he didn't quite know what to do. Bishop E6, let's go through this, Robert. Castles, D4, F5. Okay, that's the prep. Oh my, that's the prep. Yep. Look at the engine. Don't understand this, everyone. Look at this move. F5, and the computers are like, no, Black's winning. And Vishy's like, no, we've got deeper prep with our supercomputers. You sack the piece to get E5 and F6, and Black resigns.
Well, to be fair to Jan, I'm sure he's using a strong computer to prepare himself. I don't know, maybe he mixed up lines. I don't think he just like, I mean, it's hard to imagine him just relying on some maybe not the strongest engine in the world and saying, this looks good for Black, I win a piece, because, hey, he's Jan Nepomniachtchi. But I think already after this D4, F5 move, it's already toast for Black, because your king side is just being blasted open.
Well, and again, like it's not the hardest combination to see with E5 and F6, right? I mean, it's shocking when that eval bar gets a little excited, right, and switches sides. I mean, we can see it over and over again. But wow, how do you make sense of this right here if you're Team Russia?
You can't. And Nepomniachtchi is a player who can be a bit streaky. We saw him win a game yesterday against Timo Rajaba, but before that, he had lost 2 games in a row to Akara Nakamura and Ding Liren, and now he suffers another loss. So it's ups and downs for Jan Nepomniachtchi on the top board, and just what Danny called for, Viswanathan Anand gets a huge victory for Team India.
Well, and we saw it as it was going. I was saying, is this going to be vintage Vishy prep, right? Something smelt funny when he was playing as fast as he was, meeting moves like ED5 with Bishop to C4. And, you know, a lot of people, when you think of the best, most prepared players in history, you think of guys like Garry Kasparov, who really led the way with engines, computers that weren't even called engines then, influencing the approach. Of course, before that, Bobby Fischer. But I think a lot of people take for granted just that Vishy Anand, in many ways, took the torch from Kasparov and has delivered more victories that were just at home, pre-cooked in the kitchen, than almost any other player of his generation, Robert. And this is a game that clearly he had just worked out, and Jan fell right into his trap.
And I see a good question in the chat. Yeah. What if instead of taking the bishop on c4, the pawn on f5 were captured? And the problem for Black in that situation is, look at this king on g8. You just throw your queen at the king, and then you could follow up with an eventual knight to g5, and you're a rook.
I was going to say, you could even play queen h6 anyway here, and then knight g5, because the bishop is pinned.
Oh, gosh. Yes.
Like, I didn't have any. I played queen g5 instinctively. Again, we have the eval bar, but we don't have any engine help, so I'm guessing. Of course, queen f6 is probably also very good, but even that just shows how crazy this is. The bishop is now pinned. Knight g5 is coming. This was a game.
To your point, Danny, that queen f6 check picks up the bishop on the spot, right? Queen f6, king j8 takes f5, and the bishop is pinned.
Okay, good point.
Everything is winning.
Also good. So, okay, wow. Well, the game of the round has been declared.